Hello and welcome to Radchat, the award-winning therapeutic radiography-led oncology podcast. So we are here this year at UKIO and this is the very first podcast episode. We are absolutely delighted to introduce our first guest, who I like to call my diagnostic sister, Kerry Mills. Kerry, how are you? We finally got you on.
It has taken 12 months for you and Naman to actually persuade me to come here. You tried very hard last year, but no, really lovely, really happy to be here. Thank you.
We even serenaded you with loads of drinks on the Monday night last year, so we have to
I
do
know
that
that.
again tonight.
I know, yeah, maybe I should have waited till tomorrow and then you could have done.
You don't want to be hungover and doing it.
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, Kerry, there was a specific reason we really wanted to get you on the podcast and have been hounding you a little bit, and that's largely because of your amazing national role. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what you've been doing for the last 12 months?
Yeah, so I've actually been in the position of National Programme Lead for about 18 months now, and I'm National Programme Lead for the Cancer and Diagnostic Programme at NHS England. So that was part of Health Education England, but now we sit in the Workforce Training and Education Directorate. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind, a steep learning curve. I came from a regional role into the national role, and we've really been trying to, there's been a huge spotlight on diagnostics. Huge amount of money has been ploughed into the cancer and diagnostic world, and what we've been trying to do is provide some type of strategic workforce planning and oversight going into ensuring that we have education and training offers that are fit for purpose and that are going to really benefit the communities of practice that we have around us, but also the patients that we serve.
Do you find that going from a regional to a national role, it's just like there's so much to take on, there's so many different people, different characters in different areas?
Yeah. Actually, do you know, it's really funny you should say that. I was presenting at the National Radiology Managers Conference last week around leadership, and that was one of the things that I touched upon was actually, for me, the steepest learning curve has gone from that regional to that national role. There is so many more stakeholders to consider. It is so much more a multi-level, multi-pronged, multi-professional outlook you need to have. So you really need to be real, I call it a critical connector, and there's a real good phrase coined by somebody, Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote a book called The Tipping Point, and he coins this phrase called a critical connector, and it's really important to have oversight of all of these type of stakeholders. And actually all I do in my role is literally join the dots. You know, I have an idea, and then I tend to find all the people, all the key players in that idea, put them together and connect them so that the actual idea can be developed and then rolled out. So that's probably how the bit that I've had to develop the most. I've always been a bit of a networker anyway, but actually that's probably the most important bit. And also it's a huge amount of money. There's a huge amount of responsibility using public money for education and training. So I'm really one for making sure that it is fit for purpose and that it's the right thing to do. Coming from a clinical background, and again, a lot of people who work at my level are not from a clinical background, but I have that type of professional responsibility to make sure we do the right thing for our profession, and that actually the way that we're developing them and everything that we offer in terms of education and training grants, or we're looking at role development and role progression, we really need to make sure that we are heading in the direction that is going to be beneficial to us in radiographers. And of course retention is a huge issue we've got nowadays. Yes. Massive issue, and it is and it's something that is in the forefront of my mind with every single decision that we make nowadays. But so yes, that has been the hardest bit, but it's also been the loneliest. I have to say there are not many radiographers who are in maybe positions in a national level, and I think because my world now sits in a non-clinical world, I miss radiographers. I have around me a very trusted tribe of clinical colleagues who are just like gold, and they are the people that I go to when I need a really healthy check and challenge. They're the people when I need them to build me up, but I also need them to actually say to me, Kerry, you're just being an idiot. So it's that kind of realism that comes, yeah. and I absolutely, I respect them so much, and I'm so grateful to have them around me, and I don't think I could do this if I didn't have them. So it's been quite a lonely journey, but I do love it. It is really hard work. and it's a huge headache a lot of the time, but I do love it, and I've got so much more to do.
I was going to say, just looking at your career pathway and your trajectory, it's hugely inspiring for a lot of people to see how you've kind of utilised your clinical skills, but also your academic skills. You know, throughout your career, you've developed lots of knowledge and skills that have then allowed you to have this very good vision of what the professions need. Have you found that having that background and that insight has given you something else, just in addition to the standard project management?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I would be where I am today if I hadn't have had the clinical work. You know, for 18 years I worked clinically, both at a practitioner level, but an enhanced level now we call it, and an advanced practitioner level. I worked outside of radiology. I moved into emergency care as well, so I've kind of seen my profession from the outside. So when I worked as an emergency care practitioner, then obviously I had that academic role as well, which was, you know, massive, not just in terms of teaching and developing our next generation, but actually, you know, I got to learn things like, you know, I set up the first, it was one of the team that set up the first advanced practice apprenticeship programme. So even learning about that different route of education and everything that came to it, and because the apprenticeships are employer-led, actually that liaison we had with the employers was really important, because they were key stakeholders, and I could see it from their point of view, you know, in terms of the education sort of like directorate within the hospitals, the educational trust. So, and then obviously I worked in the regional role. That kind of gave me and that was some real quick fire projects. So I think down in the southwest it was myself and Lizzie Ladd. We were brought in as part of the Adopt and Adapt, and we looked at international recruitment. We had a massive international recruitment campaign, and we had to get a lot of people in very, very quickly, and we developed e-learning packages to sort of support them in their transition, in that workplace integration. So, you know, I've had you're right, a very, very, it's definitely, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you've had really lucky you've had a career like that. No, I've worked so hard.
I was going to say, I don't think that comes into it, is it?
But I've never had a particularly clear direction. So wasn't a radiographer who said, I want to be a sonographer, or I want to be, you know, working interventional. I wish I had. I think it would have been easier.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like a bit like a pinball. I've gone from pillar to post, but I've always soldiered on. I've always had a real desire to be in a position where I can make other radiographers' lives better.
Yeah.
Because I know, having paid for every single bit of education I've ever taken, having never really had study leave and had to do it all in my annual leave and own time, I don't want other radiographers to have to do that, because I know the impact it has on personally, professionally, and on family time.
Yeah.
And I just think, you know, our profession deserves to have the opportunity to develop in the way they want to develop, but in a way that is going to benefit our patients the most, because that's what, if we really say, that's what the heart of being a radiographer is, isn't it? You speak to any radiographer, what do you love about the job? Patients. And I still miss patients. I only actually gave up clinical about 3.5 years ago now, maybe it's a little bit longer. I'm trying to remember where we are. Maybe it's about 5 years ago.
COVID,
I know,
COVID
kind of, yeah. But yeah, well, no, actually, it was during COVID, because I was at the London. I went to the London Nightingale, absolutely. So yeah, so that was a nice little bit. And do you know what? I miss my patients terribly, but I'm not. But you know, where I am now, I've got a much broader influence, and I can do a lot more change where I am now, doing what I'm doing, using the skills that I've got along my 25-year career.
So your title sounds really fancy, sounds amazing, kind of get the premise that it's a national role, but what is it that you've done? What from a radiographer's perspective, what can they see in their departments, within their regions, that is a result of the work that you've been doing?
Okay, so in the last 12 months, and again, this would be tangible difference that some, you know, radiographers will be able to see. We provided, I think, 418 maybe, that figure might be slightly wrong, it's definitely over 400 training grants of £10,000 each to apprentices, and that is from level 4 mammography associate, level 5 assistant practitioner, and level 6 diagnostic and therapeutic radiography, and level 6 sonography. So we've provided, like I said, just over 400 apprenticeship grants to support those, and that's in addition to the government levy that they draw down to cover the educational costs. There are about 460 odd radiographers who've benefited from a £10,000 grant to upskill them to train at what we perceive to be an enhanced level practice. That's all. It's like, you know, it's a huge number of radiographers, and that is a really good grant. You know, like I said, I'm sure we all come from the days where all of our education's been funded for ourselves. There was no money in that CPD pot, but this is what we've done. We've really started to we're developing a consultant offer as well. And also the other thing that I've done is obviously I've brought in some additional resource into our programme around our new clinical fellows, which I'd really like to talk to you about. And I'm sure they'll be in. They're desperate to get into the pod box, all of them. They're like, it's a good job. They're like a little tribe. But I think, the work around articulating enhanced advanced consultant practice and what it looks like in radiography has needed work for some time. And so when I came into the role, the business plan didn't represent the different levels of practice. It was just all at one advanced levels of practice. So it's taken me kind of 12 months, myself and my team, obviously it's not a singular thing, it's myself and my team, to really try and separate that out and look at how is the best way we can support each of those levels. And what we've done is, like I said, we've got the enhanced level grants, we've actually got an advanced practice grant now, that's an incentivised offer, and we've actually collaborated with the advanced practice faculties in each region. So what that does is that brings a real belt and braces type approach.
That's not easy as well, sorry to interject, but collaborating with all those different people, because they'll all have slightly different views of what they want.
Yeah, absolutely, but we all had the common goal, and that's the thing, you have to seek that common ground, and the goal is that we train a lot of people in the past, or what's happened in the past, to do something, and they've never had to be able to embed those skills into practice. They've never been able, there's not even been a job for them to go into. I mean, I'm sure that we have radiographers that are educated up to master's level that really don't utilise all those skills through all 4 core pillars in practice, and that is shocking, that's terrible for them and terrible for our patients because they don't benefit from it. So we've really been working hard, like I said, this offer, that they have to have a supervisor, named supervisor throughout. There's a lot more emphasis on making sure it's sustainable. They have a role to go into. They have, job planned where they're going to have all of their, 4 core pillars mapped out into their role. So that's been a huge thing. We're looking at a consultant offer now. We're running just developing at the moment, because obviously I look after cancer as well. So we're looking at a pilot.
Yeah, don't forget the cancer.
Yeah, no. I've got you next to me. You never let me forget the cancer bit. When I ever go off on a diagnostic tangent, she's like, no, Kerry, cancer. So we've got the cancer, and we're developing a consultant cancer training pathway at the moment in a similar way to the LDNA have been done, and I'm working with Rob Crouch, obviously, who leads the national consultant work, and that is going to be fantastic. If we get that off the ground, that will be a huge win, and I'll be very, very proud of that one.
So lots to look forward to then this year.
Oh, we have got, our programme has grown hugely. We have so much work. I mean, we have, I think 55 deliverables over the programme, obviously all throughout all 5 key diagnostic pillars and cancer. So yeah, huge amounts of stuff to come. Yeah.
Every time I speak to people in national roles, I learn all these new corporate terms. Deliverables,
KPIs, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, matrix.
So Kerry, you mentioned your fellows. So what are the fellows doing?
Okay.
How do they fit into your overall national plan?
Okay, so there was 2 aspects to the fellows. A, they were brought in as an additional resource. So all of that work around, as you said, enhanced advanced consultant level practice is not easy. I'm the only radiographer in the team. I'm the only clinical person in the team working within imaging. I've got a national clinical advisor endoscopy, but obviously within imaging it is just me. And I knew it's just too much work. I can't do it all myself, and I've got lots of other responsibilities. So I advertised, which was amazing, and I give myself credit this. There was a merger going on, as you know, the huge merger, and I managed to put his business case together and fight my corner, and managed to get 7 clinical radiography clinical fellow posts.
And anyone who's ever had to write a business plan will know that's not easy.
There was several rounds to go through, and obviously there was a recruitment freeze on, so that is a huge kudos to me, because I managed to get them through, and I'm so chuffed. So we have 7, and they are aspiring or current consultant radiographers. I wanted them to be working at a specific level of practice, A, to have an understanding, and B, because I felt that they would really be in quite an influential role where they can make a real difference. The other part of it is, I know, again, this reflects back on me wanting to make life easier for other radiographers. I never had anybody to mentor me. I never really had anybody to develop me, anybody to inspire me, anybody to help me get my foot up. I've had to do it all myself.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a couple of people along the way that I can mention, so people like Bev Harden and things like that, who have been phenomenal, hugely amazing in my career. But I wanted to create a space, a really safe space, where these clinical fellows, because we know the strategic leadership and development and insight is lacking in radiographers. We don't have. We don't really look upwards, and we definitely don't look outwards. So I wanted to create this space where they could come and develop as strategic leaders of the future, where they could be mentored and coached, and where they would have the opportunity to be able to undertake some really key projects of work, and develop themselves along the way. So I've got 7 of them. I've got 2 therapeutic and 5 diagnostic.
We're always outnumbered.
I know. Yeah, I know. Oh, and 4 diagnostic, and I've got 1 clinical technologist as well, which is amazing. And they are absolutely phenomenal. They've come in and they've got loads. And what's lovely is they are so appreciative of the opportunity, and we're working so hard, and they bring so much. They bring energy and they bring excitement. They're all here.
And someone to talk to.
Someone to talk to. I know, it's very funny. My team, because obviously I just go and I'm the only radiographer, and radiographers have got a particular sense of humour. Yeah. So of course when we're in team meetings, I'll sort of like do a one-liner, and all the other non-clinical people will kind of look at me as if to say, she's a bit odd. And now luckily I've got 7 other people who all start laughing, because we just get the real dark humour. Yeah. And in fact, one of my team said to me, "My God, you lot are breeding like rabbits. We actually seem to have even more radiographers every time we come here.
Good.
We have more radiographers." So so again, it's really nice to be surrounded by lots of people. Yeah.
Could I just ask? Sorry, you'll be like, "Oh, she's got another question." But you mentioned...
Is it about cancer?
No, it's not actually. But you mentioned about strategic leadership, and it's definitely something that we've kind of spoken to managers about. Yeah. So, in terms of the trajectory of career pathways, we often will see department managers going into those roles largely as it's a next step up, rather than they have a real aspiration. And that's things that they've said themselves. I'm not saying that's a generic thing. But that they don't necessarily gain those leadership skills within the clinical environment. So when you say that you've got these fellows that are kind of engaging in that strategic area, how do you develop that? How do you develop that strategic knowledge?
I think, with Naman just saying, you're hitting new terms, it is literally being in that space and being exposed to the conversations that go on, the way that we plan the workforce, using the use of all the data at a really high level, thinking about the other national programmes that we liaise with. It's very much awareness and exposure.
Right.
I really advocate for leadership training, and you're absolutely right. There's a place for leadership at all levels, but we have a real massive gap around our radiology service managers, and they are so instrumental in all of this. When we put out offers and it comes down from national, it goes into regional, and regional kind of look at their region and go, what do we need, and then they'll put out the offers. Actually, it's radiology managers that have the real key part to play in terms of looking at their workforce and deciding who and where to develop that. But quite often they are fighting fires constantly. They don't have the time to be able to do that. So I have to say, I've got to just add in here now, this is my doctorate.
Is this your plug?
This is my, this is my plug. No. I didn't know you were going to bring it up actually. But this is the area that I'm looking at within my, for my doctorate at the moment, is looking at leadership aspirations for radiology service managers.
It's almost as if I knew, Kerry.
You didn't tell me you were going to bring it up.
Don't want you to prep overly.
No, you didn't. You certainly didn't make me prep. But no, I think it's somewhere that we really need to focus on, and I think actually that's almost like putting that middle cog in. I think we've got everything working at the bottom, everything working at the top, and actually by putting some leadership and strategic type skills in the radiology service managers, actually it then just starts connecting everything up, and we start working like a very well-oiled machine again. There we go. That's my doctorate in a whole nutshell.
And you're presenting, aren't you, at UKIO?
I am. I'm presenting, and actually I realise I've just said a couple of things that I'm talking about. But
that's good.
I am presenting. Yeah, I've got a session on Wednesday afternoon with Emma Hyde, and I'm talking about career development for radiographers. And I've got the lovely Jill Harrison from the Society of College Radiographers talking about imposter phenomenon alongside me. So it should be a really good hour. So please do come and watch.
Perfect. Thank you ever so much for listening to Rad Chat. Your host today has been Joe McNamara and Naman Joel Anderson.
Hi.